Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of I just totally lost my train of thought. This episode, where are we? What are we doing? Of the Psychic Wives podcast. I am Jerry Carabin,
I'm Kathy Rumsey.
And I'm Ginger Hendry.
and we are here with our repeat guest, Mary Dal. Do you say D'Alba or Dalba?
Dalba.
Dalba.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mary Dalba, she was on before. We had a wonderful conversation with her. We fell in love with her and we immediately wanted her back. And today she's going to talk to us about Wicca. And so before we do anything, nobody panic. We were just talking about this and kind of laughing. Nobody panic. A lot of people immediately go down the rabbit hole of, oh my God, Wicca, dark arts, witches, bad shit. That is not what Wicca is. Okay, so that's why we really wanted to have Mary on here to kind of talk about this. So first of all, Mary, how are you?
Oh, doing great. Thank you for having me back. I love you guys too.
Oh yeah,
I'm very happy to
we
be
have so
here.
much fun with you, and you're so knowledgeable, and we also really like the way that you explain things. And just really, there's kind of no nonsense about it, and you just know your stuff. So we actually really like that. So
Yay.
let's start by kind of having a little bit of that conversation we sort of just started to have before we hit the record button on this, and talk a little bit about what, if it's possible, to give a little definition of what Wicca is and where it came from.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
So it does. It does. So let's think back to the if you want to call it the old days, the ancient days. We had people that would do things in their community. So you had the medicine women and men who did things in the community where they used herbs and they used things within their home to help with home remedies and cures. We had folks that would tend to the harvest, and we just had when recording this we had Lamish recently. So that's our first harvest holiday for Wiccans, and we have folks that work with the tides of the moon and the sun and everything to ask them to help with feeding the community. So witchcraft and Wicca have always been part of our fabric from way back in the ancient times. Where it got more formalized is a lot of people say Gerald Gardner in the 50s who came up with that idea of Wicca. But it's honestly witchcraft Wicca. The Wicca is the religion piece. It's the piece where we honor the god and the goddess, and we honor the 8 holidays, and we work with the elements. We believe that there's earth, fire, moon, earth, fire, water, because I think of the moon as water, earth, fire, water, and air and spirit. Those are the elements that we work with. Yeah, so it really is, what I really like about Wicca is the fact that it really gives us personal responsibility to do the things in life that we want to do, as long as we don't hurt anybody,
Yeah. So that's a really big piece. I'm going to interrupt for just a second. That's a really big piece. I want everybody to listen to what she said, as long as we don't hurt anybody.
Right.
So in other words,
right.
That right there should make it very clear that this is not like dark arts, bad stuff.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think the media and the movies and all of that have done us any favors. And of course, it's sensationalized. You talk about Wicca and everybody goes, oh, the occult. Oh, but occult just means secret or hidden. It just means that we're trying to understand what the world is about as we pull these elements together and we interact with our fellow humans. So it's more of understanding what the secrets of the world are, or understanding what all of those elements together mean, and not just what we see on the surface. So we have that spiritual connection, and I think it's very similar to other religions, but it's a little sensationalized because it's not what I call it, not one of the big 3. It's
exactly.
It's not one of the big 3. So it's like, oh, if you're not one of the big 3, what does that mean? Well, it just means we practice something else.
Yeah,
I mean, really, that's what it means. So,
and it is very nature based. Very nature based. Can we talk a little bit? We had this conversation before, and some people think of it as in different ways. So I recently kind of dove in a little bit to paganism, and hence Wicca.
Right.
And some people look as paganism as like the umbrella, and then Wicca and shamanism and the other ones that some people have heard of, and some people under that. Some people look at paganism as a religion, and
Right.
Wicca is a religion. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
Well, I think a lot of it is what you make of it, because there's no like pope of witchcraft or
Yeah.
Wicca, I'll say. There's no pope there. There's no head honcho. I mean, you have your leaders in Wicca, and you have your covens, which have, a high priest or a high priestess in them, that sort of lead a group. But there's no like one head honcho as opposed to other religions. So I think that's where the confusion comes in. It's like, well, if I can't look to what the quote official teachings are, then how can this be a real religion? And it absolutely is. It's just that we have a different structure because we believe in that personal responsibility and, taking care of your community. It's a little bit different because we get to set how we worship and how we bring that forward. So I do think it falls under paganism, just in the sense of, if we had to identify, again, not being one of the big three, well, paganism is the umbrella. But Wicca is definitely its own thing, because you can have all kinds of things. Some people will say Satanism falls under paganism, not
Right.
to bring up the dark arts, but that's, and not even that is always dark, but that's a whole other conversation for another time. But that falls under that umbrella because it's just not under the big three. So people kind of get that understanding of, oh, paganism is the umbrella for pretty much a lot of other religions. But Wicca really is its own, it's its
Yeah.
own, its own spirituality, if you want to say, its own religion. So
And one of the things that, first of all, this is in this day and age, you will
Mhm.
find,
Mhm.
and I had to, I went to a doctor, I don't know, a month ago or something, and I had to up my paperwork, like go over your
Right,
paperwork,
yeah,
whatever. And they
yeah.
had the religion thing on
Mhm.
there. And I always put like none or whatever, because I don't,
Mhm.
it's not, my thing is not there.
Right, right.
There was actually, it said pagan/Wicca
Yeah,
on
yeah.
my insurance form. And I
Wow.
was like, sweet,
Woo!
I'm checking that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because again, this religion is not about dark arts or whatever. It's about
No.
nature. It's about
Mhm.
the moon, the sun. Can we talk a little bit about um, origins of, and not dates or whatever, but how
Right,
this
right.
stuff all became into being prior
Mhm.
to man-made religion,
Right, right.
right?
Yeah, of course. Of
Yeah, talk
course,
a little
yeah.
bit about that, like what we had said before. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot was represented by community back in the day. So if you think about it, we had, men at birth, women at birth. So it was like we had a god and a goddess, both of them. To understand the world, we have to look at it from a standpoint of what's the balance of the world, and the balance is the feminine and the masculine. That's not sex. That's more of just the energy.
Right.
So in the Wiccan tradition, you have a god and a goddess because you have to have the duality of both. And so I think a lot of that worship went from that place of do what your talents are that are the best. And so some people were the high priest and the high priestess, where they would conduct ceremony. You have people, like I said, the medicine people, and everybody just worked together. So from a religious standpoint, I think it was more of a spiritual marker of, this is what we believe, and we believe that we have the touch of the divine in our lives. So that's what we're working with. And then we had to kind of create some more structure because the wheel of the year came in, and we looked at the holidays, but that was a lot about how we feed ourselves. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, we're in the first harvest right now. We're in the fall, and we're recording this. We're coming into the fall. It's August. So what are we going to do for the fall? And what are we going to do to make sure that we're fed in that respect? Because it was harvesting, but then also, we're going to go into the darker time of the year. So what do we do for us? So it all was very much intertwined as this, all of nature is within you. All of nature is outside of you. How do we commune with both? And I think that's what makes it a little different, because we don't necessarily have to have a temple or a church to worship in. We can go outside, and
Yeah.
that's our temple and our church.
Yes.
But
So
the other thing is, can I just say too, that
Yeah.
with religion, there is one or three, what religion you're in,
Big three.
right?
Yep.
Sounds like we're
And
talking
Big
about
three.
what do they used to be, the big three in accounting firms or something. Remember that? Like the big three.
well, the thing is that when in a real, not in a real religion, but in an organized religion, when you
Right.
use the term religion, you know, everything seems to be about, you need to do this, you need to act this way, you need to follow this if you want to get into heaven.
Right.
But in
Right.
Wicca, it's not about that at all. It's about here, and understanding that the divine is here, that we are the divine,
Right.
and we're all going to
Yeah.
work together. And it's not about what I need to do in this life to get to the next life. It's
Right.
this life, right?
Right. Right. Well, what's really funny is I have a friend of mine who's in Mississippi. If you can believe this, in Mississippi, he's one of the big three. I'll say it that way. And so, but we're good friends, and we had agreed to not talk religion, right? Because he knows I'm a witch. But one day he said to me, you know, I just want to ask you, like, do you ever worry about your salvation? And I was like, okay, the old Catholic school's coming up in my head again, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, don't you worry about like what you do, you know, as far as like following, you know, the ways of Christ and all that. And I said, listen, I think Jesus is really groovy. I like Jesus, but honestly, for me, the way I understand, we're all going to the same place anyway. So
Right.
it's what I
Right.
do here. It's what I'm doing here to make here a better place. It's not, I'm not gonna, the door's not gonna get shut on me. I'm gonna go to the same place you're going. I said, well, high five you when I come through the door. I said, but we don't believe in the whole heaven and hell idea, that we have to do this or we're going to burn. We believe more in like, we're all going to the same place at the end. Let's do everything we can here now to make it a harmonious place, because that's what we
Yeah.
should
And
ultimately
is
be
it
doing.
simply because you were, and is it simply because being a Wiccan, you're labeled a witch?
Mhm.
Or you just use that label, so I'll use it.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
That there's something intrinsically bad about you? That,
Well,
do you know what I mean?
yeah.
That you
People
worry about where you're gonna
look
go?
when you use the word witch. Some people can be very much,
Mhm.
you know,
Let's talk
taken
about that,
back,
because
and that's a bad
Yeah.
thing. Like
Yeah.
you see a witch, a black hat, and nobody sees
Right.
Glenda. You know what I
Right.
mean? Nobody sees
Right.
Glenda. When you say witch, they see, you know, they connotate it with dark.
Right.
Yeah.
They do.
You know what I
They
mean?
do.
What was your? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Kathy. Did that?
No, and I was just wondering if you could expand a little on the goodness of witches, or
Oh, sure.
Wiccans, or
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
I do. Well, I have to say, I think people don't realize, like, in a lot of your work, if you're out at work, if you're on the bus, if you're probably sitting next to a witch somewhere. I mean, but because of that worry about being told that we're bad, or you know, whatever, oh, you know, we're falling away
Can
and we
you
need to be
give a
saved and all that.
definition? Can you give a definition of your definition of witch?
I it's someone who believes in a god and goddess and works with nature to make the world a better place. Honestly,
Yeah,
that's
that's beautiful.
my definition of it.
That
You
is
know, and
absolutely beautiful.
it's true. And I mean, and yes, I'll do magic to try to help myself and other people, but it's, you know, like I said, think back in the day, they had things in their house. So, you know, they would bless a cake before they ate it because they'd want good wishes for the family for the year.
Right.
It's not anything that the difference is people don't see the commonalities, which is sad. Like I grew up Catholic. I call my mother a saint. She's still very Catholic. And we were talking about this recently, and I said, you know, your prayers are your spells. I
Yes.
may create a spell, but your prayer is a spell. You utter the words that you want and you send them up to God or whoever, whatever saint. I said, it's the same thing. I'm just doing it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm using the elements to help that along. You're saying a prayer with rosary beads. So I think that's one thing that I would love people to understand, is that we all have that same commonality. We're just doing it differently. And because, you know, maybe we're not going into a church, it does freak people out, but I also think it's the unknown. It's more of sit down
Yeah.
and talk with a witch sometime. Have a
Mm.
cup of coffee. We love to talk about this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
We just don't want to be told that we're bad people and that we're going to hell. I think that's what everybody's kind of like, oh, here we go. You know,
Yeah.
it's you know,
First, I just
there's
absolutely love that definition that you just put, because it's absolutely perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And I also love exactly what you just said. Like, I'm praying, somebody's praying. What's the difference between that and you know, what, you know, your spell or whatever? And
Right.
for me, in shamanism, the moon is very, very important. Shamanism would be
Sure.
considered another religion. The moon is very, very important. We have
Mhm.
fire ceremony on new moon and full moon. And that
Yeah.
freaks some people out. What the hell are you
Yeah.
doing praying to a fire and stuff? That's
Yeah.
like, you know, but I think it's the fear of the unknown. I'm not doing anything bad.
Mm-mm.
I'm releasing stuff that isn't serving me. I'm asking for stuff to come in that is serving me. I'm
Right.
trying to be helpful to other people. I'm trying to honor this earth and nature and the moon,
Right.
etc. One of the things I wanted to back up a little bit, you had said
Sure.
you don't need to have a church or a temple or something like that. That is one of the things of Wicca. Yes, it's a very independent
Yes.
religion. You can
Right.
totally practice on your own. You can, like I do, you can, do fire ceremonies or,
Mhm.
the Wicca version of those, casting spells or blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Again, all for the
Right.
good. Or you don't have to. You can be a part of an actual coven
Yep.
where you show up at the different holidays on the Wiccan calendar
Yeah.
and do stuff. But you can also do it to yourself. Do it for
Sure.
yourself. In other words, there isn't that one being, the Pope, the whatever, that
No.
is telling you it has to be done this way. You
Right.
say this prayer and then you kneel. And then you
Right.
get up and you recite this, and then you sit, and then you kneel again, and then you ring
Right.
a bell. And, it
Oh
doesn't,
yeah.
it can be if you want it to
Yeah.
be, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that's one of the really beautiful things is that, there's a structure. We'll say, you cast a circle for protection and have that sacred space that you can create wherever you want. And then you do X, Y, Z, but people can be very creative with it. And
yeah,
I love that piece. If you want to be a solitary practitioner, we call folks who practice on their own solitaries.
yep,
So if you want to practice on your own, that's fine too. I think, you can gather the information. There's so much information out there now. But practicing with a coven or working with a coven can be really the energy of those folks. If you get into the right space, and this is with everybody, you join a club somewhere, it's got to be the right
yeah,
club.
Right.
You get into the right coven where you're really vibing with people. I think it's tremendous because you really have that not only a group of people you trust to worship with or practice with, if you want to say, but also just a community that you can lean on that know you.
yeah,
And I find that to be really, I'm in a coven now, and just the people that are there are just so wonderful, and we practice together, and just that energy is like, here's a bunch of like-minded people practicing something that's
yeah. Can you
helpful
give
to
us
the
an
world.
example of what kind of spell you might cast? And I'm not saying
Sure.
go into detail of the
Yeah.
spell, but like,
Yeah.
what are you casting a spell for? What would a Wiccan cast a spell for? Give
Yeah.
somebody an example of that.
Sure. So I want to obtain a job, and I really love this job. And so I might take pieces like the job posting and take some herbs and write out my intention for this job, and put it all together, put it under a candle that's green, say, because I want this job and green brings in money. I'm being very simple here. Light
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
candle and say my spell over it, and that's the same thing as saying a prayer, except I'm just
Exactly.
using
So that's why I wanted you to do
extra
that, because
pieces.
so our listeners, our viewers can see
Mhm.
that, oh my God, yeah, it is kind of the same thing.
The
It's
same.
just being done in a different format, I
Right.
guess.
Right. Well, that's it.
Here's one thing I
Mhm.
want to talk to you about.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
We
course.
talked a little bit before paganism, um, and so and how Wicca is kind of similar or whatever, and the calendar. Okay,
Hmm.
so was it eight?
Hmm.
Eight?
Hmm. Yeah.
Eight.
There's eight. Yeah.
Um, and they kind of go along with the seasons.
Right.
And some of what we see today in Christianity
Hmm.
goes back
Hmm.
to this calendar,
Hmm.
like Yule. What is it?
Yep.
Go
December
ahead.
21st.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking
So
about.
I do. And there is some speculation that Jesus was not born on December 25th. He was born in the springtime. But because we'd have pagans and Wiccans would have such big festivals around the returning of the light, which is what Yule is. It's the return of the light. If you think about it, it's the winter solstice. So every day from that winter solstice, we gain another minute. So it's return of the light, Jesus of the light. So the thought is that Christians went, ooh, this is a good time to get everybody together, just like the pagans are. So let's do it. And they moved Christmas back to December 25th.
And they
So-
continue to use today
Mhm.
Yuletide.
Hmm.
That's where
Yeah.
that came from.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So, you know, I think we just kind of chuckle at it a bit, but I mean, Christians, if you say that, oh no, that can't be. And I understand, you know, we're taught a certain thing. I went to Catholic school for 12 years. You're taught a certain thing. And then when there's an alternative presented to you, it can sort of blow your mind. But on the other hand, I think it also helps to understand where other people are coming from, because Wicca is one of the fastest growing religions right now. And I think a lot of people are in we call it the Wiccan closet, because they're afraid of how people are going to react. But if, you know, like I said, sit down, have a cup of coffee with someone who practices witchcraft or Wiccan, they will tell you, you know, this is what it's about for me. So it's the same thing. I mean, I think everybody should sit down with someone with a different religion and get their perspective, as long as they're open. But yeah, it's really interesting. The wheel of the year, a lot of it has to do with, you know, pagan and Christian sort of mirroring each other.
Yeah.
And it's funny when I see people celebrating different things. I'm like, yeah, well, if you only knew.
Yeah, if you only knew where that came
If
from.
you only knew where that came from.
Yeah, and total disclaimer here, we are not dissing Catholicism,
Not at all.
Christianity.
Not at
We
all.
are not saying all you guys that believe that Jesus was born on you know, December, you're wrong. That's not what
Nope.
we're saying.
Nope.
Different
Nope.
belief systems.
Mhm.
And we're just presenting you with another. We're not saying you should believe this way because the way you believe is wrong. We're not saying that.
No.
At all. And that, I
Mhm.
think, is one of the reasons why we love you, Mary, because you're not that type of person. You're not pushing anything on anybody. You're just like, hey, you
No.
want to pick my brain? Pick my brain.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
gonna go do my witchy thing, and not,
Right.
you know, nobody, it's not a big deal. So just so everybody knows that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think and I wasn't knocking that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I smile because I'm like, okay, you know, I think if we had a conversation, we may both look at things differently, and that's great. And I think that's also important, that people understand, like all of us, all different religions walk among you, and the more you know, and the more you can connect with people. I mean, you're living whatever your religion you practice, because all of the religions are based on love.
Yeah. Well, and what
So
you said before was cool. Like, okay, so
Minor eye roll there, but yes.
are they supposed to be? Are they supposed
It's
to be?
all
supposed to be.
religions are supposed to be based on love.
Right.
Or
You know.
I don't know, maybe they're not. I don't know. Maybe, you know, because when man got involved there, you know, that's when things started to kind of, you know,
Right.
maybe be more about do what I tell you to do, kind of thing there. I want to step back just what
yeah,
you
go
had
ahead.
said before about if you have this discussion, your belief systems may be different, and that's okay. But I also believe that, again, especially if you have a discussion and you know a lot about the origins of Wicca, I think people that are afraid of it would be very surprised to find out that some of the things they believe and have been taught originated there.
Yeah.
You know, so
I-
it could be, yeah, it could be like, yeah, I disagree with you there, but it could also be like, no way, oh my God,
Right.
like really kind of enlightening about that. And I also love what you said about different religions, or I don't know exactly, but within a religion, you know, every one of us was raised Catholic, and we always laugh about this, because I swear to God, I don't know anybody in my tribe, meaning my intuitive, psychic, mediumship tribe, like we all are, that was not raised Catholic.
I know, very few.
Yeah.
I don't know. And isn't that interesting? How do, you know, we should dive into that
Well,
one of these days to figure it out.
yeah.
But I think even within a certain religion, and I'll just take Catholicism because we were all raised Catholic, people believe different things within the religion.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
Oh, yeah.
mean? Like, my priest says this. Well, my priest says this, you know, stuff like that. So I think it's just a really good, just it would be really eye-opening Everybody should do that. Here's your homework, everybody.
Yeah.
Find somebody that has a religion that's completely different from you. Do you know what I mean? And talk to them about it, because it can be very like, whoa. But again, talk to them about it, not from the place of, I'm going to talk to you so you come back over to the good side
Right.
and don't go to hell.
Right.
Not from that space. You know,
No,
so
no,
what
and
else should somebody know about Wicca?
well, what I was going to say is, that discussion I had with my friend who's in Mississippi, it was really interesting because him and I both said, like, we're not going to change where we are, but it did open his mind a little bit. And for me, it was, I respect that that's where you are, because I think that's a teaching, and that's where it sits in your heart. But also know there's other people out there who don't believe it quite like that. We just try to be, do the right thing because we try to do the right thing, not because we're afraid we're going to burn. And
Right.
the other thing I'll just say is this, like, growing up Catholic, going to Catholic school for 12 years. And, I think for me, I look at it as there's things about Catholicism that I really liked. I really liked that there were saints. I really liked that there was ceremony. The fact you went
Yeah.
to church and there was ceremony and there was ritual. I love that. What I didn't, for me, and I'm speaking for me, what I didn't like about it was I felt like women were not represented as strongly in that faith. And that's what really made me step back from it. But the idea of prayer, again, it's spell work. The idea of, going to church every Sunday, it's ritual. It's very, I think a lot of Wiccans will say, I take pieces from that, but I know I needed something more for me. And I think that's the thing that I would want people to know. Like, it wasn't an affront to Catholicism for me. It wasn't like, oh, this thing's terrible and I never want to. No, I very much respect that foundation that I came up on, but I also know I needed more for me. And I think that's where, no religion is perfect for anyone. Like you said, even in Catholicism, we believe different things.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with every religion. So it's really, I think everybody at the end of the day just wants to do well in the world. Most people, we've got those
Yeah.
folks that are troubled, but most people just want to do
Trouble.
some kind of good. troubled. But they want to do good. We want to do good in the world, like, or we want to do good within our family, whether it's the world and that our family is our world, whatever it is. So that's the thing. We're in the same place you are. We sometimes get to wear different, cooler clothes around the holidays. I mean,
Yes.
but like, my coven and I will get together and we'll go to dinner. I mean, we do. You could be sitting around a group of 12 people and they all could be witches. You don't know. So we're all trying to earn money, take care of our family, do what we try to do, what we want to do. But I think from a faith standpoint, it's what was the most fulfilling for me. And I think that's what's really important for everyone to know out there. Explore the things. If you're not fulfilled in your spirituality, explore different things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you change. It just means maybe like you get some more information and decide where you go from there. But yeah, Wiccans, we're out there with you in the world. And so we're not, doing sacrifices in our yard. Like, it's just
Yeah.
not how it's
There's no-
happening,
There's no goat blood involved. People. There's
No,
goat blood involved.
but that's the thing. I think that's the thing that bothers me. It's like, oh, well, you must believe this. And it's like, really?
Yeah. And I think that was one of the things that when I started kind of diving into, let me read about paganism, shamanism,
Yeah.
got that. Let me read about paganism.
Yeah.
Like, when I got to Wicca, I was like, there it is. Do you know what I mean? Because it was like, and here, I don't know if I'm describing this. It was like, okay, so here's man-made religion to me. Like, for those of you that are listening, I'm holding my hands up, but there's like a ceiling. And to me, like, the Wicca and goddess and God, opened it up.
Yeah.
Took it up
Yeah.
to another level, took it to that spiritual level,
Mhm.
as opposed to what someone is telling me, what someone else has decided is the right thing to believe. And also, again, I had mentioned this before, that independent part. I don't have to every Sunday get up, put my nice clothes on, put my hat on, go to church. Do you know what I mean? I can do it
Right.
myself. I can be independent, or I can reach out to a community or reach out to a coven or anything in between.
Right.
Kind of, it's a basic belief system, again, God and goddess, but then you make it yours,
Right.
and you can grow with it, which I really, really loved. Would
Yeah.
you mind, again, we talked about the 8 holidays. Can you mention the 8 holidays and give us a brief
Sure.
go ahead. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep, I do. I do. So right now, we just, like I said, August 1st was Lammas, which is the first harvest. We're gathering everything that we need to get through the winter. And then Mabon, which is the fall equinox, usually around September 21st. We've hit the second harvest. So you got to have all your ducks in a row then, because you're hunkering down for the winter. And then, so that, again, briefly, like
Yeah.
then we
for
have
sure.
Halloween or Samhain, which is when it's our high holiday. It's basically our new year. So we're
Yeah.
coming into the new year on Samhain. So that's why I kind of, I laugh about Halloween. I'm like, yeah, it's a high holiday for witches, guys. Just know that.
Yeah.
So then we go into Yule, which is the winter solstice. That's the return of the light. So then we come around to February 2nd, which is Imbolc, which is the return of the bride, we say, or return, because really it's a thought of this mating kind of thing where the bride and
Like
the
a dance.
god and the goddess meet. Yeah, and they get married. They have a child, and then the god dies and we come back around again. So, but Imbolc's really the return of the bride. So it's the goddess, and then we have Ostara, which is the spring equinox, which is return of spring. So like things just starting to get fertile.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have May Day on May 1st, which is also Beltane, which is where the god and the goddess are really getting like, hey, we're
Hippie. Woohoo.
hippie. Yeah. A lot of weddings happen that day on Beltane. Yep. And then we have the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year. So really, when you're trying to create this abundance in your life, that's the summer. So, to really enjoy that energy of the sun, because we're going to start to now move into the first harvest again. So that's really what it is. It's coming around to, this story about the god and the goddess meeting, falling in love, having child, God passing, and then coming back around to the light again. So going through all of the things that we feel in life, light and dark. But light and dark doesn't mean
and equating to the seasons in the fall,
right,
ducks in a row, things are calming down,
Yeah.
and harvest and
yeah, because if you think about it, we really spend a lot of time with ourselves in the fall and winter
yeah
because it gets colder out. So it's like,
Yeah.
what are we harvesting within ourselves in addition to making sure we got enough to eat?
Yeah.
It was a lot of that. So that's the 8 like major holidays, and it really just goes in that wheel. That's why they call it the weird wheel of the year. It's the nature cycles of
Yeah.
birth and life and death.
yeah
It's all it's all encompassing in that. So it's
so that's what I was
interesting
kind of
because-
talking about, how it
Yeah.
is nature based,
Mhm.
to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Yes, moon and sun, but
Yeah.
nature based. And I had kind of talked about this before. This was sort of my take when I had been reading it too, is like, when do these were the types of religions, and I'm using air quotes for religion, because did anybody
Mhm.
call it religion back then? I don't know.
No.
Before
Probably not.
Christianity, before all
Mhm.
this, because here was this huge yellow thing that came up and caused your stuff to grow,
Yep. Yep.
and days were long, and then, oh gosh, it's getting colder and we have to bring the
Right.
harvest in, and
Right.
do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course, people, if you've got this big yellow thing that comes up and you figure out that this yellow thing is what's growing the stuff that's allowing you to stay alive,
Hmm.
you're kind of like, praise be, yellow thing.
Yep.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of,
It's
so it's really not wacky. I mean, if you're an ancient person,
mhm.
and hey, I'm gonna talk to you and be very kind to you, son, because you're keeping me alive. You know
Right.
what I mean? So if you really, 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 really dumb it down, you could see where this type of thought was created or came
Yeah.
from. Yes?
Yeah.
Is that a
Yeah.
stretch? I don't think
Totally.
that's a stretch, right?
No, I don't think it's a stretch at all. I mean, I think it was, again, going with nature and saying that, we think of the story about Persephone and her mother, and Persephone getting depending on who you talk to, Persephone was kidnapped by Hades, got pulled to the underworld, right? And the story is Ceres, who was her mother, was the goddess of the harvest. And so when her daughter got kidnapped, she got taken away, she mourned, which means everything started dying. And the world was kind of like, uh-oh, like we got a problem. We're all starving up here. And so there was this whole thing that happened where Persephone had to be negotiated back up for 6 months out of the year. And that's where we get our growth. That's
Yeah.
the idea. So there's all these stories. I mean, these are Greek gods and goddesses. It's not
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah.
so it's all these stories sort of impact us in the present, or the, like, if you want to call it the more organized industrial world. But these are still things that we have to worry about. If once the sun's not as strong as it is, then we got to worry about, well, how are we going to feed ourselves, whether it's even just our own energy. I don't
Yeah.
know about you, but winter in Boston for me is like, oof.
I know.
It's tough. How do we feed ourselves? We got to get back to the sun again.
Yeah.
Well, I do think
So-
myself personally, I always kind of think of religion having a piece of control, right? I mean, trying to control the masses, to behave in a certain way. And even though we have all of those beliefs, which people do believe that in the divine,
Absolutely.
that religion does control that, where Wiccan doesn't have any control. And I mean that in a good way. The control is ourselves and recognizing the divine. Just the
Recognizing that the
divine.
universe is in divine order, and
Yes.
allowing it
Right.
to be in that divine order.
Right.
That was, I love
Right.
that. That's beautiful, beautifully said,
It's true.
Ginger.
It's true.
I
Yeah,
really invite, I'm going to ask you if you, because again, I started diving into it, just like looking on Amazon and trying to find different books and stuff, and kind of,
Yeah.
and I really was, when I was reading, I was like, whoa, oh my God. Like it totally resonated with me. A lot
Yeah.
of this stuff resonated with me. And not only did it resonate with my thinking, it resonated sort of like what you said just now about, Boston in the winter. Ugh. Like it
Mhm.
resonated with how I feel at certain times of the year. It resonated with what I want to attract in my life, and stuff like that. So I really encourage anybody to just, you're not going to go to hell if you get a book on Wicca. Just read it,
No.
because some of it you're going to be surprised. You're going to be
Yeah.
very surprised. And if you were previously afraid in any way, you're going to be like, ow, ow.
Right.
And it's going to smooth it out for you. Do you, if somebody came to you and said, where do I start?
Yeah.
Do you know of any books that you could recommend? She's not affiliated with any of these, but do you know any
No, I'm not.
books that you
I'm
could, is it like, hey, look up Wicca for Dummies and you're good? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No. No. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to get a foundation that way, I'd even be careful there.
Or a
Jer-
website, because I'm sure that there are, if you can
Yeah.
Google Wicca, but not every
Mhm.
Google result that comes up is going to be maybe
Right.
the most reliable source of information. So
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
remember, good point. And remember, it's a very independent. So the
Right.
person that creates a web page on Wicca may be into different aspects of it,
Yeah.
and that might not resonate with you.
Right. I totally agree. So there's a ton of, I'm going to mention a few authors for
Yeah.
folks, and I will say this, there's some people that if you Google the authors, they'll be like, well, these authors are terrible. And some people be like, oh, I can't, they're amazing. So here's what I would say. I'm going to recommend some things, again, not affiliated with anybody, but read it and take what works for you. And folks are more than welcome to reach out to me if they have questions about it. But there's, the Scott Cunningham books are out there. There's a bunch of stuff. He's very good with a solitary witch practice, herbal kind of work. Scott Cunningham's great. Gerald Gardner, who's really, they consider the father of Wicca. His books, Witchcraft Today, are out there. He has some stuff. Raymond Buckland, for folks in the Wiccan tradition, they hear about the Big Blue Book. The Big Blue Book is all about like being in a coven or being a solitary. Buckland's book on witchcraft, I think it's called. I can just see the book with the big silver pentacle on it. Some people swear by Silver Ravenwolf, some people don't. But I've, again, when I was younger, I read her stuff. I thought it was great. And I, incorporated as I thought was best. And again, this is with everybody that you work with. A more recent author that's out there, Matt Oren, Psychic Witch is a great book. So the web is good to kind of poke around and see different things, but honestly, I am cautious, like you had said about people who throw up a web page. They can write whatever they want.
Yeah.
Sometimes going into the books and getting the resources, and then you can connect, like Matt's on Facebook. You know, I know he has a fan page. You can connect with them that way. And I don't know any of these folks personally, but I just know that a lot of times authors The Spiral Dance is another book. That's an oldie but a goodie, and that's on the reclaiming tradition. There's a ton of stuff out there, but those
Yeah.
that I just mentioned, those authors, if you really want to take a dive in, those are some good ones to work with.
That's awesome. And I love what you
Yeah.
said about, thank you for that. And I love what
Sure,
you
of
said
course.
about, you take what you want.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
okay, because there's not like, again, it's not like a religion where now we ring a bell, now we sit down, now we kneel, now we, whatever. There's not really a right and wrong way, other than a wrong way. The right way is do no harm. This is,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And all
Yeah.
about love and blah, blah, blah. So the wrong way, there is a
Right.
wrong way, obviously, to,
Sure.
use it bad to cause harm, or, to
Bad intention.
whatever.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it really is, there's going to be parts that people that doesn't
Right.
resonate for somebody. And then there's
Yeah.
going to be parts that like, whoa, that's amazing. That's me. Oh my
Mhm.
God,
Right. Right.
kind of thing. So you can
And
take what you want, um,
and leave the
and
rest.
leave the rest. But we would love to have anybody that decides to dive in and just read a book, to comment, whether it's on the Facebook page or on our website or on YouTube, and say, oh my God, you guys are right, or oh my God, you guys are crazy, whatever. We're
Yeah.
good with that.
That's fine.
Wouldn't be the
I've
first
heard it
time.
all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wouldn't be
I've
the
heard it
first
all.
time.
Yeah.
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 Wouldn't be the first time. Yeah, so that was awesome. Do you guys have any more questions?
I don't
No,
think so.
Yeah,
That was
I just,
great.
Mary, as usual, totally
Yeah, so great to
so
talk.
knowledgeable
Thank you.
about stuff. I love the way you talk about your stuff, and just from a place of love, give information to anybody who wants to take
Of
it,
course.
and they don't have to take it if they don't want to.
No, that's okay.
So yeah, just super awesome. So thank you for being with us again. And I don't know that it's going to be the last time. Just saying.
No.
I
I'll be back.
Well, our resident
Yay.
guest wives, Mary Della, is here with us again. So anyway, thank you so much for being with
Thank
us.
you.
And because Mary's been with us before, her information is all on our website still, so you can get her website there, her contact information, all that stuff on our website, thepsychicwives.com. Click on the guest menu item there, link, whatever, up at the top. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. So yes, thank you all for listening or viewing. This is, if we didn't mention it before, we used to be going up on YouTube, and then we stopped that for a while, and now we're going to try to be doing it again. So you can find this on our individual websites, on Apple, Spotify, and now on YouTube if you want to see our pretty smiling faces, which we are really trying to make ourselves look a little bit better now that we're back on camera. This morning I was like, ah, crap, I got to put on mascara. Do you know what I mean? So we'll try for a while.
See how it goes.
That may last, that may not. You might see us in pajamas after a while. Who knows? But anyway, thank you very, very much for being here as usual. You can also find us on our Facebook page. So until next time.
Be well.
And be kind.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.